Chris?
Mr. President, you have stated flatly, and you stated flatly again tonight, that you did not trade weapons for hostages. And yet, the record shows that every time an American hostage was released, last September, this July, and again just this very month, there had been a major shipment of arms just before that. Are we all to believe that was just a coincidence?
Chris, the only thing I know about major shipments of arms, as I've said, everything that we sold them could be put in one cargo plane and there would be plenty of room left over. Now, if there were major shipments, and we know this has been going on, there have been other countries that have been dealing in arms with Iran. There have been also private merchants of such things that have been doing the same thing. Now, I've seen the stories about a Danish tramp steamer and Danish Sailors Union officials talking about their ships taking various supplies to Iran. I didn't know anything about that till I saw the press on it, because we certainly never had any contact with anything of the kind. And so there's, it's just that we did something for a particular mission. There was a risk entailed, and Iran held no hostages. Iran did not kidnap anyone, to our knowledge, and the fact that part of the operation was that we knew, however, that the kidnappers of our hostages did have some kind of relationship in which Iran could at times influence them, not always, but could influence them, and so 3 of our hostages came home.
But if I may follow up, sir, on that first point, your own Chief of Staff, Mr. Reagan, has said that the U.S. condoned Israeli shipments of arms to Iran. And aren't you, in effect, sending the very message you always said you didn't want to send? Aren't you saying to terrorists, either you or your state sponsor, which in this case was Iran, can gain from the holding of hostages?
No, because I don't see where the kidnappers or the hostage holders gained anything. They didn't get anything. They let the hostages go. Now, whatever is the pressure that brought that about, I'm just grateful to it for the fact that we got them. As a matter of fact, if there had not been so much publicity, we would have had 2 more that we were expecting. Sam?
Mr. President, when you had the arms embargo on, you were asking other nations, our allies particularly, to observe it publicly. But at the same time, privately, you concede you were authorizing a breaking of that embargo by the United States. How can you justify this duplicity?
I don't think it was duplicity. And as I say, the so-called violation did not in any way alter the balance, military balance between the 2 countries. But what we were aiming for, I think, made it worthwhile. And this was a waiver of our own embargo. The embargo still stays now and for the future. But the causes that I outlined here in my opening statement, first of all, to try and establish a relationship with a country that is of great strategic importance to peace and everything else in the Middle East. At the same time also to strike a blow against terrorism and to get our hostages back, as we did, and to this particular thing we felt necessary in order to make the contacts that we made and that could lead to better relations with us. And there was a 4th item also, as I pointed out.
Sir, if I may, the polls show that a lot of American people just simply don't believe you. That the one thing that you've had going for you more than anything else in your presidency, your credibility, has been severely damaged. Can you repair it? What does it mean for the rest of your presidency?
Well, I imagine I'm the only one around who wants to repair it, and I didn't have anything to do with damaging it. Bill?
Mr. President, you say that the equipment which was shipped didn't alter the military balance. Yet, several things. We understand that there were 1,000 TOW anti-tank missiles shipped by the U.S. The U.S. apparently condoned shipments by Israel and other nations of other quantities of arms as an ancillary part of this deal, not directly connected, but had to condone it or the shipments could not have gone forward, sir. So how can you say that it cannot alter the military balance, and how can you say, sir, that it didn't break the law when the National Security Act of 1977 plainly talks about timely notification of Congress, and also, sir, stipulates that if the national security requires secrecy, the President is still required to advise the leadership and the chairman of the intelligence committees.
Bill, everything you've said here is based on a supposition that is false. We did not condone and do not condone the shipment of arms from other countries. And as to what was the other point that you made here?
The anti-tank missiles,
Oh,
sir.
no, about that it didn't, that it didn't violate the, or that it did violate the law. No, as I've said, the President, believe it or not, does have the power, if in his belief national security can be served, to waive the provisions of that law, as well as to defer the notification of the Congress of this.
Isn't it possible that the Iraqis, sir, might think that 1,000 anti-tank missiles was enough to alter the balance of that war?
This is a purely defensive weapon. It is a shoulder-carried weapon, and we don't think that in this defensive thing we didn't add to any offensive power on the part of Iran. We know that Iraq has already announced that they would be willing to settle the conflict, as we've said, with no winners or losers. And that and the other parts happen to be spare parts for an anti-aircraft Hawk battery. And as I say, all of those weapons could be very easily carried in one mission. Now, I think of Charles, or, yeah.
Mr. President, I don't think it's still clear just what Israel's role was in this. The questions that have been asked about a condoned shipment, we do understand that the Israelis sent a shipment in 1985. And there's also reports that it was the Israelis that contacted your administration and suggested that you make contact with Iran. Could you explain what the Israeli role was here?
No, because we, as I say, have had nothing to do with other countries or their shipment of arms or doing what they're doing. And no, as a matter of fact, the first ideas about the need to restore relations between Iran and the United States, or the Western world for that matter, actually began before our administration was here. But from the very first, if you look down the road at what could happen and perhaps a change of government there, that it was absolutely vital to the Western world and to the hopes for peace in the Middle East and all, for us to be trying to establish this relationship. And we worked, we started about 18 months ago, really, as we began to find out some individuals that it might be possible for us to deal with, and who also were looking at the probability of a further accident. Trudy?